He has been managing this. That is the part you need to understand first. Not that he left. Not that he went quiet. Not even that he has been distant, in ways that make no sense to someone who can feel what you feel. It is that he has been actively, deliberately, continuously managing his response to you, every day. Every time something brings you to mind, every time his body does something he did not authorize it to do. He has a system, most divine masculines do. A set of internal moves that keep the feelings in their place. Keep the magnitude of this connection from breaking through into daily life. He redirects. He stays busy. He finds reasons to focus on something concrete, something with a clear outcome, something that does not move like water the way this does. He keeps things surface level. He tells himself things that make the distance feel rational. And it has been working, mostly, until lately. Something is different in him right now. Not dramatic, not obvious. He would not name it himself, probably cannot name it. But you might be able to feel it, the way you have always been able to feel what is happening in him before he can put language to it. There is a pressure in the field between you. Something that has been held down is pushing toward the surface. His system is starting to show its seams. That is what this is about. If you are feeling something between you has shifted in the last few days, if you are feeling him in a way that does not match whatever silence or distance is on the surface, leave a like and subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. Drop "I feel the shift in him" in the comments to anchor what you are sensing right now. Because what is actually happening is not about behavior. It is not about whether he has reached out or gone quiet. It is about something much deeper than that. Something physiological. Something his own body is refusing to cooperate with any longer. Right now, as you are watching this, there is a reading waiting to be pulled specifically for you. Not for twin flames generally, for your connection. For the exact chart you carry, the exact blueprint between you, the specific configuration of your soul contract with him, and what it is currently asking from you. A lot of people in this journey are sitting with a question they cannot fully articulate. Not just when or if, but why. It feels like this. Why it has always felt like this. What the sky was saying when the two of you were born into these bodies and into this particular kind of love. That question has an answer in your chart. The Twin Flame Union Personal Reading looks at the current energy between you and him. The key astrological indicators in your chart tied to your union, the karmic patterns and blockages that are active right now, the divine timing of your next phase, and what your soul contract with him is genuinely asking you to do or release in this season. You get a personal audio reading delivered straight to your inbox, plus a detailed written report you can return to. Your name, your birth date, your exact time and place. That is all it takes to unlock what the sky has always been trying to show you. You can order yours right now through the link below. Here is what is actually happening inside him. And this is not metaphor, this is physiology. The human nervous system does not have a setting called suppression in the way most people think about it. There is no drawer in the brain where feelings go when you decide not to feel them. What actually happens is that the nervous system learns to interrupt its own process, to initiate an activation and then immediately begin dampening it, to feel the pull of something and at the same time trigger the physiological response that compresses that feeling before it reaches full expression. It is an extraordinary thing the nervous system can do, and for a long time he has been very good at it. Polyvagal theory, the work of Stephen Porges on how the autonomic nervous system governs human connection and response, describes something researchers call the ventral vagal state as the baseline from which genuine intimacy is possible. When the system is in this state, the body is calm, accessible, able to receive. But when a connection feels threatening, even a connection that is desired, even a connection with someone the person loves, the system will shift. It will move toward mobilization, the fight or flight branch, or it will move toward shutdown, the dorsal vagal branch. And in that shutdown state, the body becomes very quiet, contained, managed. This is what he has been doing. Not because he does not feel, because he feels too much and the system has learned that the most efficient response to overwhelming activation is to flatten it. The divine masculine in twin flame separation is almost always operating in the shut-down adjacent state around this specific connection. Not globally. He is probably fine at work, fine with his friends, able to function and feel things in other areas of life. But when anything activates the channel that leads to you, the system moves immediately into that compressed, managed, do not let this through response. He has been running that program for a long time, and programs do not fail gradually. They run perfectly right up until they do not. Something happens at a certain point in nervous system suppression that the research is very clear about. When a response has been continuously activated and continuously interrupted for long enough, the body begins to develop what you might think of as pressure. The activation keeps occurring, the suppression keeps occurring, and at a certain threshold, the system begins to override its own override. This is not a metaphor. Neurologically, emotional suppression requires active effort. It is not a passive absence of feeling. It is an ongoing process that demands physiological resources. The sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system are in constant dialogue. And when the thing being suppressed is something with the activation charge of a twin flame connection, something with the level of cellular memory and energetic resonance and unresolved attachment that exists between the two of you, eventually the cost of continuing to suppress it exceeds the capacity of the system to sustain that suppression. What happens then is not a breakdown in the dramatic sense. It does not usually look like a flood of emotion from the outside. What it looks like from the outside is almost nothing, a moment of stillness, a strange quality of distance that is different from his usual distance, maybe a brief reach that he pulls back almost immediately, maybe a silence that has a different texture than the silence before it. From the inside, it is significant. From the inside, it is the moment the architecture he built around this feeling begins to develop fractures he cannot ignore. The system he has been running reaches a point where it is no longer functioning as a tool for protection. It is functioning as a source of strain. And something in him knows it. The divine masculine at this stage of late separation is not a person who has moved on and found peace. He is not sitting somewhere in comfortable indifference. He is a person who has been holding something at bay for a long time, who has become very skilled at holding it, and whose body is beginning to exhaust itself with the effort of the holding. That is the pressure you are sensing. That is what has changed in the field between you recently. It is not his feelings that are new. Those have always been there. It is that the system that was containing them is losing its efficiency. Here is where this becomes important for you. Because the specific thing that accelerates the failure of his suppression system is not what most divine feminines expect. It is not reaching out. It is not making contact. It is not injecting yourself into his awareness, which his system will simply treat as another activation to be managed. The thing that most destabilizes a nervous system running on managed suppression is the removal of the expected input it has been organized around. His system learned to run the suppression program in response to a specific thing, in response to the version of you that was available to it, the version that reached, that hoped, that sent energy in his direction even in silence, the version whose longing was a kind of ongoing presence in the field between you, something the system could orient around and continue to manage. When that changes, when the divine feminine completes a genuine shift in herself rather than a performed withdrawal, something happens in the field that his system does not have a protocol for. It does not receive the expected input. The thing it was organized around stops arriving, and the system, which has been running its suppression program in response to that input, suddenly has nothing clear to suppress. What fills that space is not silence. What fills it is the unmanaged feeling itself, rising without the familiar trigger to organize the suppression response around. This is why the twin flame journey consistently shows that the divine feminine's genuine inner work is the most powerful variable in the dynamic, not because it is a strategy, not because it manipulates anything, but because two nervous systems in this kind of bond are in continuous conversation below the level of conscious choice. When one of them changes at the level of the body, not the level of behavior, not the level of words or actions, but at the actual physiological level of what it is carrying and what it has released, the other system registers it. His body knows when something has changed in yours. It cannot explain how it knows. It does not need to. The nervous systems of people in deep connection communicate in ways that bypass the thinking mind entirely. There is a practical piece here that matters. If you have been doing genuine inner work in this separation and you have started to feel something shifting in the field between you, something that does not match whatever the surface level distance looks like, you may be watching exactly this process. The suppression system in him beginning to lose its footing because the variable it was organized around has changed. That is not nothing. That is everything. Now, one thing I want to name here because it matters enormously for where you are right now. A lot of people in this journey are doing real work, showing up for themselves consistently, making genuine progress, and they cannot see it. They are inside the process, which means the daily movement is invisible to them. They feel like they are spinning. They feel like nothing is actually changing because they are measuring change by his behavior, which is the last thing to shift, not the first. If that is where you are, the Twin Flame Journey Tracker and Progress Workbook was built specifically for that problem, not for the journey in theory. For your journey documented, tracked, visible on paper. Because transformation that is not tracked is transformation that feels like treading water even when you are moving. The workbook includes an 8-stage journey tracker, so you know exactly what those words are. A synchronicity log so you stop letting the signs go unrecorded. A daily self-love checklist to keep your focus on yourself. Weekly reflections to spot patterns you would miss otherwise, and monthly reviews that show you in black and white what is actually moved. 39 pages. You can find it through the link below. What it gives you is not more information. It gives you evidence. The specific thing that his suppression system cannot protect him from is the fact of your genuine growth. And this is the tool that makes that growth visible and real, rather than something you only half believe in your harder moments. This is what the late separation stage looks like from the inside of his experience. And I want to describe it precisely, because the way it feels from his side is almost nothing like how it looks from the outside. He is not at peace. The people around him might think he is. He has gotten good at projecting a kind of functional normalcy. He goes through the days. He makes decisions. He talks to people. He does the things a person does. But underneath that functional surface, there is a continuous low-level activation that never fully resolves. Every reminder brings it up. Not necessarily a reminder of you directly, though those happen too. Sometimes it is a song. Sometimes it is a conversation that takes a turn he did not expect. Sometimes it is a moment of unexpected quiet. The kind of stillness that happens late at night or in the early morning before the day begins, when the system does not have enough noise to organize its suppression around. In those moments, what he has been managing becomes the loudest thing in the room. He does not necessarily think of it as you. The nervous system does not always arrive at the correct conscious label. He might just feel a kind of restlessness, a dissatisfaction, a sense that something is absent that should be present. He might feel it as irritability. He might feel it as a strange, directionless grief for something he cannot name. But you are what he is feeling. The connection is what the system is still processing. The thing he told himself he was done with, or not ready for, or protecting himself from, is what is underneath that restlessness at 2 a.m. when there is nothing left to manage it with. The polyvagal research is specific about what happens to nervous system regulation in the context of attachment bonds that have not been completed, not ended, not healed, not worked through, suppressed. The activation cycles continue. The body continues trying to complete the loop, and the system cannot complete the loop because the object of the bond is not available to it. What he is living with is a nervous system that keeps initiating a process it cannot finish. That is not a small thing to carry. That is an enormous thing to carry. And he has been carrying it for longer than you probably realize. The late separation stage, from his side, is not comfortable neutrality. It is the advanced phase of a suppression system under sustained load, and the end state of that kind of sustained load is not more of the same. It is the moment the load exceeds the capacity of the structure. You are watching that moment approach, not because of anything you are doing, not because of any action you are taking or not taking, because of something that is happening in the energetic and physiological field between two people whose connection has never stopped being active, no matter what the surface behavior looked like. The current astrological climate is supporting exactly this kind of threshold crossing. Venus, still moving through Cancer, the sign of emotional memory and homecoming, is activating all the feelings around where we belong and who we return to. The approaching conjunction with Jupiter in the same sign is expanding what has been held compressed. What has been in a smaller container is being pushed toward a larger one. The sky is not creating new feeling. It is amplifying what was already there. And what was already there, in him, has been under pressure for a long time. He cannot suppress his way through a Venus-Jupiter conjunction in Cancer. The system does not have enough resources left to manage the magnitude of what that sky is bringing up. Something is going to break through. And when it does, it will not look like the dramatic reunion scene that the thinking mind has imagined. It will probably look quieter than that. A message, a reach, a moment of contact that does not fully explain itself. Something small on the surface that carries underneath it an enormous amount of what has been held back. You do not need to prepare for it. You do not need to manage it or strategize around it. You just need to stay in the work you are already doing. Stay with yourself. Stay with the genuine process of your own healing and growth. Because that process is the thing his nervous system is most responsive to, whether or not he can consciously explain why. The system that has been running in him for this long does not need another activation. It does not need more of what it has been organizing its suppression around. It needs the thing it cannot predict, the thing it does not have a protocol for. Your wholeness is that thing. Stay with it. This journey has never been about earning something. It has not been about doing enough or being enough or suffering enough to deserve what the connection is. The divine feminine, who has been showing up for this work, genuinely, without performance, without strategy, is not doing it to move him. She is doing it because the connection itself asked something of her that turned out to be about her, about who she came here to become, not just about reunion. And that is exactly why it works. The nervous system truth is this: he has been managing a connection that he cannot reason his way out of, and cannot feel his way through because the feeling keeps getting intercepted before it arrives. And the one variable that changes the entire architecture of his internal system is the one thing that is not in his control. It is whether you are still who you were when the suppression system was built. If you have grown, genuinely, at the level of the body and not just the behavior, if you are carrying less of the longing and more of the completeness, if the shape of you in the field between you has changed at a deep level, his system does not recognize the input it has been organized around. And in that gap, in the space where the familiar activation used to arrive and now something different is present, the suppression has nothing left to grip. That is the opening, not something he does, not something you say. A shift in what the field between you carries. A change in what his nervous system receives when you are in its awareness. And his body, which has never stopped knowing you were there, begins to feel a different kind of pull. Not the pull that his system knows how to manage, something that arrives without the familiar shape, something that does not fit the protocol, something he does not have a response prepared for. You have been doing this work. You may not be able to see it clearly from inside it, which is part of why the journey is so disorienting in the final stages. But the work is real, the shifts are real, and the field between you is responding to those shifts whether or not anything visible has moved yet on the surface. Trust what you are sensing, trust the pressure you can feel. Trust the fact that something in you knew this was the right moment to find this video, to sit with this information, to let it land. That is not coincidence. That is the same field working. Stay in your work. Stay whole. Let the system break the way it needs to break. That is how this opens.